Okay, so we just set up the animation for shot 3, and after we finished that video, Jason and I had a discussion off camera, and we decided that maybe we aren't quite done yet with the animation on that shot camera, because if we bring our attention to the end of the shot, as the ball climbs the ladder, we have this crane motion going from this composition over to revealing the pool, and we felt that motion was too abrupt, too sudden. So to deal with that, what we're going to do is we can simply move our keys, have the motion start earlier, so have it start after just a couple of jumps, and have it end just as the character enters this corner of frame. So we're making it start earlier and end later, and that will reduce the abruptness of that camera move. And it's really easy to do since we're not changing any of the values of the keyframes, just their timing. Let's find where we want it to start. So we're going to have probably two bounces. So around here, I'm going to shift middle click on translate to scope those channels. Shift left click to scope append our rotations. Push H to home up on those. These are the keyframes starting that final camera move. Let's left click marquee drag over all of them. Then left click on any one of the keyframe handles, that's the vertical line, and we can drag that back to our current frame. So that's going to start our camera motion here, and we want it to end the camera motion just as the ball enters the corner of the frame, so around frame 593. So we can jump into the channel editor. We can see this is where we want these final keyframes to be. So I'm going to left click marquee over all of these guys. Then I'm going to left click on any one of the animation keyframe controls and drag those over to the new frame. And that's going to give us a much smoother and less abrupt camera motion. So our ball's going to start bouncing. The camera's going to slowly crane over, finishing its crane just as we start the dive, which is much, much nicer than before. So that's dealing with cleaning up shot 3, but the main focus of this video is going to be in creating the camera for shot 4. So let's jump over to the whiteboard and take a look at shot 4. So shot 4 is a very simple shot. We're going to actually start by looking up at the ladder as the ball is diving off the ladder. And as the ball dives down towards the pool, the camera is going to track with the ball, following it down into its final composition being something similar to this. You also notice in our storyboards that we had a fifth shot. That fifth shot is the same composition as the end of our third shot. We're actually going to achieve this, instead of setting up another camera, we're simply going to overlap and reuse frames in our final edit. So we're actually only going to have 4 cameras and 4 true shots, and we're going to cut back and forth between shot 3 to shot 4, and then cut back to reusing the end of shot 3 for this final shot. But here we're interested in shot 4, so let's get a camera in place looking up at the diving board as the ball dives off and tracking down as the ball dives into the pool. So I'm going to jump over to Houdini. I'm going to unlock from this camera and just zoom out to see everything. I'm going to left click on camera in the shelf to create a new camera, which I'll push enter to create at the origin. I'll then select to look through this new camera, which let's rename him while we're here to shot 04. So let's look through shot 4 and lock our view to that camera so we can get this positioned. So again, we're going to be on the left hand side of the stage, and we're going to be down towards the bottom of the ladder, looking up at the diving board as the ball is about to dive off. So it's going to be something like so. So we're seeing the ladder on the right hand side of the frame, but we're most interested in seeing the ball diving down towards the bottom of the frame. And as the ball dives down towards the bottom of the frame, we're going to track down with it, meeting the final composition that we're after, which we're going to track and move down to see this final composition. So let's set this back up something like so, and key this around here. So I'm going to alt left click on translation and rotation for our shot 04 camera. And then as the ball moves towards the bottom, let's actually unlock so we can come out and see where the end of that animation actually is. So right around here, let's switch back over to our camera, lock it back to our view, and track our camera down to look at the pool where the ball's dived into. So that's matching much more closely to this final composition. If we bring our audience in, we'll see our audience looking at the ball. And because of auto key, we've got our keyframes. I'm going to hide out the audience so that we get nice feedback to make sure that we are actually tracking with the ball. Yeah, I'm very happy with that motion. So our ball's going to dive, and we're going to track with the dive as the ball dives in. You'll also notice it's going to be slightly slow feedback. We're going to start with the audience out of shot, and as we track down with the ball, the audience is going to come into shot from the bottom. So with that, that's going to wrap up the camera placement for shot 4, which is going to wrap up the camera placement for all of our cameras. Now, while we're here, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the camera switcher. Despite the fact that in the final edit we're going to overlap frames, so we're going to have frames that are rendered from 2 different perspectives at the same time, and we're going to overlap in time, we can get a rough idea of what's going on with our cameras by using a camera switcher. So let's create a camera switcher, which is just a switcher. And we can wire in all 4 of our cameras into that switcher. So selecting all of them and then clicking on the output of any one of those, and then clicking on the input of the switcher has wired all 4 shot cameras into the switcher. I'm going to unlock our view and switch over to the switcher. So now with the switcher, as we switch between our cameras, we're going to look through our 4 views, and we can key this for our switches between the various cameras. So at frame 1, we want to be looking through our first camera, camera 0, so I'm going to alt left click on the switch camera parameter. Then right around frame 220, we want to switch over to being our second camera, and that's automatically going to key. And that second camera is, if we hide out our bleachers, is going to keep us until the ball leaves the view. So right around here we can switch over to camera 3. Now notice that ideally we do actually want to overlap this range, because we also want to have the ball travelling from the right of the frame in. But for this very quick demonstration of the camera switcher, we're just going to simply switch back and forth and not worry about our overlapping frames. So this shot is going to be the longest in duration. It's going to take place over the entirety of the animation up until the ball is about diving, and as the ball dives in, we're going to switch over to our final camera, which is going to track down with the ball, and then we're going to switch back to our second camera. Now if we were to play that back, we're going to get really weird flickering of the cameras. Why is that? Well, that's because of the tangents on our keyframes. So if we shift middle click to scope up our animation, we can see we're blending smoothly between all of these keyframes, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to marquee drag over everything, and I'm going to give us stepped tangents, and that means we're going to stay on the value right up until the frame before the keyframe, and we're going to switch over an instant over one frame. So that's going to give us our first shot that tracks with the audience, if we actually bring the audience in. So that'll give us our first shot that tracks with the audience. Great, I'll hide that out now. And then we're going to have our second shot, so let's play back. So our first shot is actually tracking with the audience, but that's causing feedback issues. We're then going to have our second shot, cut to our third. We're going to track up with the character and pan around. We're then going to have that slower train over revealing the pool. To the final dive, switch, track, and then switch. Everything's going to feel a bit jumpy and a bit jerky. That's because we don't yet have the overlapping frames that we'll get, which we'll be able to use with our final edit. But it gives you an idea of the timing and how everything's working together. And with that, that's going to wrap up all of our work with the cameras. Thanks a lot.